Hello and welcome to episode 1304 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Wednesday, June 5th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, we're joining together on a Wednesday for the Thursday episode. How you doing today?
I'm devastated. I'm distraught. I
Why?
am. I lost Trevor Williams on my fantasy teams,
I can't believe that
and
that's not even a meme. Like,
yeah,
he has been amazing this year. Listen, not my favorite off the field, but on the field, my man has been rolling. 5-0. That's the biggest. I'm start with that on purpose, Justin, because we talk about wins all the time. I'm always crying and complaining. Notice I haven't been crying as much about it lately because the wins are coming. I'm not just going to keep
yeah.
crying about something when the tide has turned.
You got
My
two
wins
wins last night,
got two
baby.
wins, got some great pitching. Both Justin and I had some great pitching, including some overlap together. So yeah, I'm not here to continue to gripe about that. But Trevor Williams 5-0 on the Nats with a triple deuce ERA, 2.22, and a 108 whip. Like everything was going well. Keeping the ball in the yard, stranding runners. Everything was working. We knew it wasn't going to stay quite at this level, but he was pitching brilliantly. So when you say you lament the loss of Trevor Williams, like that's legit. And it's a flexor strain, which can be the precursor to some real trouble.
And you're
So
not holding him. Like you
that
just
was my
probably
question. So the question
like
is, are you immediately out on Trevor Williams? And I think I am in all formats.
yeah. I think I'm
Maybe
just
NL
dropping
only where
him.
you can linger, but any
I mean,
mixed format.
hopefully we get some information by the end of the week.
Yes,
But
because
we're
we're in
talking
weekly
about a guy
leagues.
who he's like 35 years old. Like it's like at this point, like we knew regression
Hey,
was
hey,
coming.
hey, 32. 32.
Oh, it's actually younger than I thought.
Yeah, a
Like
little bit
we,
younger.
but like we knew the regression was coming, and actually, so this is kind of like best case scenario because instead of eating the regression, you're
True.
just dumping him off your team, right? Like you get to keep all the goodness that you got, and now you're just dumping him
You don't have to make
straight
the
up.
tough
So
decision of like when do I jump off this train after the first bad start. You just jump off now and cash in all the greatness. Again, we don't wish for injury, even with guys that we're not quite aligned with on some other things. There, I'm never somebody that says like, "Oh, I'm so glad he's injured." But yeah, with Trevor Williams, I do think he is a cut in all of your mixed leagues formats for sure. And again, you can wait for some news in an NL or even maybe some deeper mixers if you've been leaning on him. But flexor strains, those are pretty scary. So
yeah,
it's not a good situation. Today we're going to talk some struggling studs, and I put studs in quotes here because they're not established studs. No, in fact, this entire list, except for one, they're guys that had great years last year and came into the year as guys to go out and get, and they are highly rostered in a lot of formats. But we need to question that roster rate if that needs to be up there again, except for the one guy, and that'll be obvious. I'll just say it. It's Austin Riley. Like we're not putting him in the same category as the other guys, but I do want to talk about him. These other guys, though, like they haven't proven enough, and I'm wondering is their name value keeping their roster rate too high, or are you looking to stick around? So let's start behind the dish with Gabriel Moreno, who has just a single homer, 19 ribbies, 18 runs, and a 242 average. The one homer I can forgive. I did have some hope that the playoff barrage of homers might have been an indicator of things to come, while also understanding that putting up 4 homers in a month, he could have done something close to that in. I think he did do something close to that in the regular season where he had a stretch. Yeah, he had three in August, in 14 games. And so then his four in 17 playoff games, like that's a spike, but it doesn't mean he's a power guy. But, there was a little glint of hope there that maybe Moreno had tapped into something as opposed to just being hot. Turns out it was a hot streak. I can forgive that, Justin. The 242, I cannot. I got Gabriel Moreno for a floor batting average with power potential. We are not getting that floor batting average. Do we need to be holding Gabriel Moreno? Let's start with two catcher leagues because I think the answer is absolutely no in one catcher. You can move on and start playing the rotation game there at catcher if you haven't already. But what about two catcher leagues for Gabriel Moreno?
uh, I mean, I think depending on what the other options. The problem is like there's like 24, 25 like decent catchers for a two catcher league,
Yeah,
which
so you
means
play the
they're
hot hand.
which means like in a 15 team league there aren't any available. And even in 12
Oh,
team
okay.
leagues, there
That
may
yeah, that's a
not
good
be
point.
available. So, like, what are you dropping Gabriel Moreno for at this point?
Well, let
Like,
me give you some 15 team. Okay, I have a unique option, so it doesn't really count
okay,
because he's 98% roster, but Connor Wong is available, one of my mains. So to your point in the two catcher setups, this is a fair point. 15 teams, the highest rated that roster rate that I've got that will be on other leagues, not Connor Wong randomly being here with 98% roster rate, is Travis d'Arnaud at 61%. Miguel Amaya, 35% roster rate in the main event. Freddie Fermin, 33. Ben Rortvit, 16. And Alejandro Kirk, 14%. Alejandro Kirk and Gabriel Moreno are similar, and Kirk's
yeah,
doing an even worse version of this. So I guess to your point, in a 15, maybe I'm not there. Maybe I wait to see if Joey Bart, when he comes off the IL, would you do that move? When he's working his way back?
probably not. I mean, I don't really believe Joey Bart has figured much of anything out, to be quite honest. Though, let
Okay.
me let me look up some things while we talk about other guys on Bart. So I just want to
Yeah,
see what he's hitting against
I think
breaking pitches.
it depends on when he's coming back from the groin, right? So this is a like this is a theoretical at this point because Bart's on the IL. Don't cut a guy for somebody on the IL right now.
What about
But
Bart's teammate, Henry Davis, who just got recalled?
I would definitely do that in a 12-teamer. I'm taking Davis over Moreno. I'm gonna take the shot on Davis again. He got off to a brutal start. He had some hype coming into the year. I shared in that hype. He went down to the minors and crushed. He did exactly what we would want him to. 7 homers, 1078 OPS for Henry Davis down there. I love that. So I'm fully back in on Henry Davis in formats where he's still available, which I think he will be in 10s and 12s. I'll go for him over Moreno all day.
I will say on Bart, like he has improved against breaking and off speed pitches,
It's
but I
been
think it's
good.
mostly BABIP fueled. He's
Okay.
murdering fastballs. He's got a 320 batting average and a 370 xBA versus fastballs. So, but he's always like hit fastballs well. I mean, not this good, obviously, but
Sure.
he's hitting 217 against breaking and then 250 against off speed, which I can live with if he's murdering fastballs. The problem is like the XBAs on both of those are 153 and 112,
Got it.
which tells me he probably hasn't figured out much of anything, and I think pitchers will just catch up to him at some point
So that's
when he
that's Joey
comes back.
Bart, and it's a
Yeah,
thumb, not a groin. Sorry about that. Other 15 teamers that are going to have some availability: Jose Trevino, Jake Rogers. They doing anything for you over Gabriel Moreno?
I think it really depends on what you need because at least like Jake Rogers has power to go along with the bad betting average.
Yeah, but
So
Trevino's got both looking better. He's got 5 homers, one more
Trevino
than
I
Jake
might
Rogers,
actually,
and a
yeah, Trevino I
264
might
average.
do.
He's only 50% rostered in a
I
15-team main event situation.
I do want to say though, like for the Moreno thing, like I think this is just a reminder of like, hey, just because someone had like a decent rookie year doesn't mean they're going to progress, right? And I mean, we do say it all the time, like progression isn't linear.
Yeah, he's
Um,
24. I'm not out on Moreno in the long term.
but I think this was kind of like the downside of Moreno
Hmm.
that we're seeing after seeing like the playoff upside of Moreno. Uh, I think he'll be better. There's nothing in the profile that tells me like the batting average shouldn't come back, and so like I don't mind just holding and kind of waiting and seeing, especially if you're not enthralled by the options.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that on Moreno. If some of the names that we've mentioned are available, I go for it, but you don't force it because the batting average should crop back up. If you were planning on that pop, hopefully you weren't planning too firmly on it because it was always speculative that he could add some of that pop. I do still like Moreno long term, but I'm just nervous right now. It hasn't been great. Let's move
Yeah,
over to first base with a guy that I think both of us, had some intrigue in. I didn't end up getting him anywhere because I'm not always as keen on kind of power only guys, but Jake Berger's power last year was unquestioned. 34 bombs, including 9 and 53 games with the Marlins. And there was concerns that like, okay, is the power going to come way down when he goes over there? No, it did come down, but from an elite level to very good. Like I'll take what he was doing over there with the Marlins, but then his batting average soared through the roof with a 354 BABIP fueling that. We knew that would smooth out too. You take the composite, and it was a 268 ISO and a 284 BABIP last year for Berger. This year it's a 101 ISO. Where has the power gone? And a 278 BABIP. So the BABIP is fine, but it's leading to a 228 average because he's not striking the ball. What the hell's going on with Jake Berger? His ball on the ground all the time too. 56% ground ball rate. That's up 13 points from last year. So you'd think the BABIP would have a chance to be up a bit. And yet here he is hitting 228 with 4 homers. Are we hanging on to Jake Berger?
Uh, I think we are. I mean, the power's still there. He still hits the ball with authority. It's going on the ground more often than it should. But I just
But not sneaking through for any
yeah.
base
Well,
knocks even so.
And he's slow, so it's not like
True.
he's not gonna outrun anything if it is on the ground and gets gloved. So I think he's gonna be okay, but I can also understand, especially in shallower leagues, like just cutting and moving on. It's hard to find a power source like this, a guy who can hit 30 home runs. And I do think Jake Berger is a guy who can hit 30 home runs. So I'm probably just benching and holding outside of maybe 10-team leagues. Like 10-team
bench
leagues,
and hold
probably
on Berger, except for super shallow.
Yeah, I mean, you probably like move on to like a Mark Vientos or something like that.
Sure.
In your shallower formats, but like in 12 teams and 15 teams, I'm probably just benching and holding because I do think a homer barrage comes at some point. He's never been like a massive launch angle guy. He has had ground ball tilts, quite often throughout his career. So I'm not like super worried that this is gonna like stop him from getting to 20 plus home runs.
I'm inclined to hold Berger as well for a lot of the same reasons that you outlined. I don't think his profile is devastatingly different from last year, except for that big ground ball spike, which does feel fixable. And it's all come out of his line drive rate for the most part. Well, not all of it, but a big part of it has. Like the fly ball rate is down a bit, but not nearly as much. So I think he can smooth that back out, get back on track, and Jake Berger can give you a good 4 months from here forward. I'm going to stick with him too, except for those very shallow leagues where you can definitely kind of rotate some guys and you can't really wait on these types. That is the big difference in those shallower formats, is that you got to stick and move with some of these guys that aren't doing anything for you at a 2-month mark. This was a guy, I'm not just trying to backpad and be like, I got this right, because I got plenty wrong, but you couldn't pay me to draft Zack Gelof. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And he was I got a lot of that 14 homers and 14 steals down the stretch last year. So I got to experience the greatness that he offered, but I just didn't believe in it as anything close to a new level. Now, I didn't have him down for a 63 WRC plus either, which is why I'm not saying like, oh, I knew he was going to melt. But he's melted, Justin. 4 homers, 5 steals. At least he's giving you a little fantasy juice, but with a 184 batting average and bad runs and ribbies, because while the A's are better, they're still not good. Can you be holding Zack Gelof in the deeper formats? In the shallower formats, he's already long gone, so we don't even have to address 10 team.
Yeah.
But what about your 15s and maybe even some of your 12s where you've got the MI and the utility and the CI, so a lot more players are being taken up. What do you think about Zack Gelof right now in those medium and deep leagues?
I mean, I obviously didn't think he was going to be this bad, but I called this. Like, I'm ready to take my victory lap. I talked about how bad the contact skills were for Zack Gelof. Now, I said, like, hey, I think he can still accumulate because the A's are so bad that he's going to play every day. But you probably wish he wouldn't play every day. You probably wish they would just send him down because he is playing every day and just crushing you. Crushing your batting average. No, I think he's droppable in all formats. I mean, I guess AL only, probably not because he plays every day, but
yeah, and that honestly, and I know I brought up the NL only, or it kind of goes without saying with the NL and AL, like it's just such a different format. It's so shallow that you have a hard time really moving off of anybody ever.
No, I'm dropping him in 15 leagues if I've got him anywhere. And
Gelof it's just not there. And
nothing.
To your accumulation point, he is pacing for 15 and 20. So
Yeah.
you were right. Like he is getting that, but at what cost to your batting average that's being bludgeoned? His pace, do you want to guess his RBI pace right now? If he played 162 games at this current pace, how many ribbies would Zack Gelof have?
37.
Okay, you're a little light, 45.
Okay.
45 is obviously
that's pretty close.
Yeah, that's pretty darn good. And 64 runs. So like he just can't be held anywhere. And again, like I'm not trying to. Justin might be. I'm not
I
trying to
am
dunk on
totally.
anybody.
I'm
Yeah,
talking.
Justin definitely is trying to dunk on the people who drafted him. Because again, I didn't have him this bad. He felt like such
I,
a trap.
it, it's not that I'm dunking on people who drafted him because like I
No,
actually
but
don't
you said before we
mind.
started, like, we're gonna dunk on those stupid morons who
Yeah.
drafted Gelof.
Mhm.
We have to do
Yeah.
that. Can I call
Yeah.
them slurs? And I
I
said,
should have
don't
been
call them
recording.
slurs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No. Yeah.
go ahead, go
Uh,
ahead. You're not
it
dunking on them, but
it was the price point. It was like it had nothing to do with like drafting him in general because like I said, like he's gonna accumulate and I want to say like I had him for like 14 homers and like 22 or 23 stolen bases, which is fine, even with like a 230, 240 batting average. It's where he was going in drafts was insane. That was the problem, especially
yes,
because he's in Oakland in that park with that team around him. Like you knew the runs and RBIs weren't going to be amazing. So
but
like taking him in the top 150 was a mistake.
people were extrapolating that 14-14 because he did it.
Yep.
Gelof did it in a very even 300 plate appearances, and the
Yep.
easiest thing to do is to 600 plate appearance that and say this dude could be
Mm-hmm.
30-30, bro. And look, we always talk about the dangers of extrapolation because they're always present. Sometimes if a guy has some big skills, you can say, okay, that could be an upside. I never thought that that was a close to an upside for Gelof. So we're beating a dead horse. We're out on Gelof. Move. Hopefully, if you've been hanging on, it's time. Move on. What about All-Star Orlando Arcia? He was an All-Star last year. He's part of an excellent team. So I understand why people might have jumped on board. Even if he's an 8-9 hitter on a great team, I'll take that. He does have 6 homers and 20-something runs and ribbies. So, basically, I would trade what Gelof's doing for this. I'll trade those extra steals for a 235 batting average and at least a better run and ribby pace. He's pacing for about 60 of each is Arcia, but it's been pretty bland. And I'm curious if you're moving on from Arcia in those in any formats really, because I do think he kind of runs the gamut here in the questions. I think in the shallower ones it's easier to move on, but I am curious where you're at in like the 12s and 15s on Arcia because part of the question is like, yes, he stinks, but who are you going to get? Just like we were asking
Yeah.
with Berger. So where do you come out with, with Orlando Arcia?
Yeah, I think the hard part is who you're going to get. I mean, I think you probably should move on even in 15s. Like Brett Wisely's out there. Guys like
Okay.
that like Wisely is like hitting second in the Giants line.
Would you take Rocchio? Would you take Brian Rocchio?
Yeah, I think I would. I think that's a decent one. I mean, there wasn't that long ago Mason Wynn was still available in leagues. Like,
True.
he's been unreal good this year. So, like, yeah, I think I'd probably move on from Arcia. I think he's one of the guys that's really getting hurt by this kind of deader ball, and because he just doesn't have much pop in the bat, and so while for most league average power guys, the ball is now dying on the warning track. His is dying in the infield, and that's the problem.
No, it is really tough.
He's not running at all. Like I know he's not been a big stolen base guy, in spite of the fact that he is a quick guy, but like no stolen base attempts. I don't believe unless he was caught at some point. No,
unless he was caught.
God, he hasn't had a stolen. He hasn't had 2 stolen bases in the season since the 2020 season. Wow.
Yeah, and to kind of put that all together, he has 4 total SBs in his last 359 games since 2020 for Orlando Arcia. So, he doesn't run, not enough pop, not enough juice. I just don't know where you're getting it. The tough part is, like I said, in those deeper leagues, who are you going to pick up? But at this point, I'm probably looking for anybody because he's just not delivering right now, Orlando Arcia. So, good luck finding somebody.
It is barren out there. Like I'm not gonna lie.
It is thin. But the shallower leagues, you probably should have already moved on. But if you haven't, there should be something out there for you. What about teammate Austin Riley? Now he's on a different level from all the rest of these guys because we're not advocating cutting him, or I'm not. You may be different, but I know you love Austin Riley, and I doubt you're going to say to cut a second, third rounder this early. But it's been a pretty rotten season. 3 homers, 230 average. What are you seeing here? Is it simply a 6% homer to fly ball and everything else can click from there? Or are there elements that Riley is contributing to that are deserving a low homer to fly ball rate, because for the record, his career is 19%. And that's generally where power hitters of his caliber live, 19 to 22% type of range on the homer to fly ball. So at 6%, this is, catastrophically out of pocket for Riley. Are you concerned? Are you moving on anywhere? And what are you seeing in his profile? Multiple questions there. Take them as you want them.
I mean, the easiest one is no, I'm not. I'm not moving on.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm not either. I didn't think you were.
Like, if you go and look at his spray chart over on Savant, you can see at least 4 balls that he's hit this year that should have been home runs. And would we be having this conversation?
He probably doesn't make the list with 7 bombs.
With 7 bombs, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got a 300 BABIP. He's been a career 324 guy. Almost every single underlying statistic that I care about is exactly the same as last year.
Yeah. Like, and if you give him
home run fly ball rate, is the issue.
Yeah, I think it is that simple, and sometimes it is, which is great. If you give him those extra 4 homers, it would also raise Austin Riley's average to 252. So he'd have 7 homers and a 252 average. Would not have made the list. So again, sometimes I put guys on lists like this just to calm people's nerves a bit, because it is frustrating to see him not delivering the way he needs to be. But here's what I like to take a positive sometimes. If I have a team that's doing just fine with a struggler or two like that, then I feel confident, because I feel like Riley's going to be fine. So if I'm still in the top third of the standings with Riley struggling, just wait till he gets going. He's going to push me way up the board. So I wouldn't be nervous about it. I assume a yes for you here, but would you buy low on Riley? Would you try to go in and get any sort of discount you could?
Absolutely. Like, when I say like his numbers are exactly the same, like it's literally to the decimal point same zone contact as last year. Yeah. Like, he's fine. Like, it's not like literally to the decimal point same hard hit percentage as last year. I mean, I just think now maybe he is getting the deader ball is hurting him, and those 4 home runs
on some of those 4.
Something. Yeah, like. Maybe those won't. But I think as things heat up in the summer, so will Austin Riley, and I'm just not super worried about him at all. I would totally try to buy low.
Exactly where I'm at. I would take any sort of discount. I'd even pay market rate. So if
I tried to get especially if I need power right now. Like if like the position you and I are in a number of leagues, which is our pitching is better than our hitting. Obviously, we play mostly on FPC where we can't trade, but if I was in a trade league with my pitching better than my hitting, like I would give a Luis Castillo for Austin Riley and feel okay with it.
All day. And so if you can get any discount, you take it. But if you end up having to pay market, do that for Austin Riley. He's definitely an easy buy right now. Nolan Jones was also on my bust list. Again, I'm not going to sit here pounding my chest as if I well, no, because that one was so easy. Come on, if you made a bust list and he wasn't, and as we'll talk about,
like his season has been derailed by injuries. Like he just has not been healthy all year. So it's not like and neither of us were not taking Nolan Jones because he was injury prone. He wasn't. Exactly. There was no sign of an injury issue with Nolan Jones. So I think I'll let you finish your intro.
Well, 1 homer, 2 steals. The BABIP, which was the big thing that we were not buying into last year when he went 2020, was 401. And even with Coors, you can't maintain a 401. Now, another trick with somebody like Jones is that he strikes out a ton. So his chances at BABIP are even lighter. So and I guess that could be spun both ways. Maybe he doesn't have to get as many hits or whatever, so you can say it could be a positive. But I think it's hard. I think it makes it harder to maintain a high BABIP like that, even when you strike the ball well. You mentioned the injuries. He has just 26 games, so we got to give him a little bit of a reprieve there. But at the same time, people need to start making moves and not let their fantasy teams fall too far behind. So are you cutting a 4th, 5th round pick Nolan Jones with 1 homer, 2 steals, and a 170 average? Or are you giving him some runway because it is only 26 games and this would essentially be, late April, early May in his trajectory if he had been playing all year? Or if it was based on 26 games?
So my biggest issue with Nolan Jones was there was no way with his own contact numbers that he was going to maintain any sort of batting average, plus, right? He just
Yes, exactly.
last year he had a 74% zone contact percentage, which is 10% below league average. And like,
Gross.
even with the BABIP help you get in Coors, like, you're not going to have a good batting average. And those strikeouts, while last year was, at 30%, I was like, hey, this is easily a 35 to 40% strikeout guy with the way he cannot make contact in the zone. So he's struggled this year, and he's been dealing with injuries. You know what the crazy part is? He's got league average zone contact. He's
Really?
actually made underlying improvements.
That's got to be so frustrating for him. Like, wait, I got all this BABIP juice last year, and now this year, while struggling and being injured, Nolan Jones can't get anything to go for him. So I guess the question is, like, what are we doing then? How are we approaching how we're holding or cutting Jones? Are you cutting him in any deeper leagues even?
I don't think I would necessarily. He seems he's working his way back from a rehab assignment.
Yeah, he's on a rehab right now.
So I kind of want to see what he is when he comes back.
Okay.
My concern is that he has tried to sacrifice a little bit of the violentness in his swing and the power in his swing for that contact. And maybe that's a mistake for a guy like Nolan Jones.
I could see that. I think my boy Jack Sawinski made some changes that I advocated for originally, and now I don't like. I wanted him to, I
Did
thought
you
he could
see
cut down.
you haven't seen the Roto write-up today, huh?
Oh, I have not.
You should go see the Roto write-up.
I'm going to see it. By the way, I want to point out real quick, Nolan Jones was on a rehab with a back issue and then hurt his knee during that rehab to facilitate
Yeah.
this. So when we talk about him being snake bit, like it's been a really rough season for him in addition to the issues that he's faced at the plate too.
Yeah.
What are we looking at here for Sawinski? Oh, let's go.
So now
I would love for him to pop off. I didn't realize he got called back up yet. I was out.
He got called back up yesterday and hit a home run. And I there was a writer for MLB.com
Alex J. Stumpf.
Yeah. Yeah. So Alex Stumpf, he did a little swing comparison on Twitter, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm using that for the Roto write-up." Because you can, if you look side by side of the swings, he changes his hand positions from being more parallel to the ground to being perpendicular to the ground. It allows him to load quicker inside the zone. And now, obviously, it's one at bat. He went 1 for 3, struck out twice yesterday too. So like, it's still Jack Sawinski, but if he fixed something, like, I think Sawinski could be a really, really interesting pickup right now, and a guy would go run to the wire for. So
I like that.
That's our little Jack Sawinski tangent right there.
Small tidbit that you might want to fix. Under Mason Win, you put the Jack Sawinski thing a second time.
Oh man,
you put that tweet in there twice. That's why somebody commented that Sawinski change is so nice you had to post it twice, which is pretty funny. And then somebody put oh man, that's a really nice. Someone did like a whole essay in response about a chunk about Waldron, and then a chunk about Sawinski, and then a chunk about Connor Norby. But yeah, I like Sawinski. Now, let me ask you this: in a shallow format, if you're still holding on to Nolan Jones, would you cut him to go get Sawinski? Or are you trying to hold, like you said, you want to hold Jones for when he comes back?
I'd like to hold Jones, especially because most likely you have IL spots and you're holding Jones on your IL. I guess in a league where I didn't have IL spots available or mine were full, like I had an extra player, like, yeah, I might make that move to get that bench spot. Because who knows how long it takes Jones to come back from the IL, and he could have another setback. He's already had one, right? So
that's also a good point. And
I don't mind that move at all.
While we were not the biggest advocates of Jones this year, I understand why somebody who drafted him is sticking around and trying to see it through a little bit. And I even talked about how it was a heart versus head thing, where I didn't like Jones from what I thought he was going to do with fantasy purposes, but I like him as a player. And so I was
Yeah.
actually rooting for him and hoping he would do well. So that was kind of a difficulty that I had to battle there with Nolan Jones. So here's hoping that things get better for him when he comes back. Next guy on the list here, as we move on to a couple pitchers. These ones surprised me how low they ranked on the player rater because, I know this one guy, first guy, Yusei Kikuchi. He's been doing mostly well this year. And if you look at his composite numbers, 366 ERA, 125 whip, you're not too upset about that. However, things started to come unraveled a little bit recently. And it hasn't just been the home run issues just completely tanking on him, which is probably what you would have guessed. But over his last three starts, he has a 7.53 ERA with 10 strikeouts, four walks in 14 and a third for Kikuchi. Is this just a blip? The toughest part about it, Justin, is the opponents. White Sox, Tigers, Pirates. That's supposed to be a cushy spot. And he had a baseline quality start against the White Sox. Actually, one of them was unearned, so it was even better. 6 innings, 3 runs, one of them 2 earned. But then the Tigers and the Pirates walloped him. Are we okay with Kikuchi, or do we have some concerns about this recent stretch here?
I'm never feeling okay necessarily about Kikuchi.
That's how I am.
It's just like the control and the command on the breaking stuff is always kind of like hit or miss, and so like and when that happens, he can be hittable, and that's what we saw, especially in the last two games. It wasn't like he gave up a bunch of home runs or even walked a bunch of guys. He just became hittable in the zone in both of those starts. So I think I'm not dropping him, I don't think, but I am keeping an eye on him, especially because I think he's going to be a massive trade target. He's in the
If
last
Toronto doesn't come around.
Yeah, if Toronto doesn't come around. And I mean, at some point, it may not even matter. They may just be so buried in the division that they just go, do we really want to
Exactly.
retool?
He's got an uphill battle here. He's got Baltimore tomorrow as we're recording this, so on Thursday the 6th, and then a trip to Milwaukee next week. And they've been bashing everybody. Those are two tough spots. Baseball, as stupid as she is sometimes, that's going to be where he dominates. He's going to get back against Baltimore and Milwaukee for Kikuchi. But obviously,
he just threw 4 to third versus Baltimore with 9 strikeouts, only gave up 1 earned run on a solo shot.
That was on May 15th, right preceding this run. He'd been amazing. He had a 2.60 ERA. Kikuchi did through his first 9 before this little blip here, including no strikeouts against the Tigers. So that just maybe an off day against Tigers and Pirates, and then a medium day against the White Sox. I don't even want to say medium. It was fine. You want him to go against the White Sox and do 6 shutout with 15 Ks. Well, not everyone can do that. So I don't want to include that one. It's 2 bad starts for Kikuchi. But he is down to 98th on the season among starters on the player rater, which surprised me a little bit. I'm surprised that 2 duds.
Good pitching has been.
Exactly. 2 duds pushed him down that much. But you're holding firm with Kikuchi. I am too. Even as somebody, this is similar to the Nolan Jones thing where I wasn't all in on him coming into the year with Kikuchi, but the people who were should certainly stick by him because I don't think he's done enough to make you jump off. Even though it's 2 bad starts against 2 teams that you're supposed to take advantage of, you got to ride this out. He's been too good, and the 0.8 homer 9 is very encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
What about my boy, Kutter Crawford, another guy who, if I told you a month ago that he was going to be on a list of are we sticking with him in shallower leagues, you'd have said, what? And we probably are, but it's a 3.51 ERA, 1.18 composite. That's great. But like Kikuchi, a recent stretch, and he does have 3 duds in a row here, but his is more palatable because it's Milwaukee, Baltimore, and Atlanta. I guess the real question then is, are we altering how we use Kutter Crawford? You can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think you're going to cut him anywhere because while pitching does have some, interesting players bubbling up, there's not enough to just cut Kutter Crawford types in my estimation. But does he become more of a team streamer here with 3 struggles in a row against quality offenses? Or, like Kikuchi, is this simply a blip after 10 great starts? You're due a little pullback on your stuff, and that's what Cutter's going through. What do you assess on him after these 3 duds in a row?
I think this is just a blip, but I'm definitely going to be kind of watching. I don't want to say I don't want to say I'm curating his starts because I don't want to say he's like a team streamer at this point. But I'm definitely kind of watching his next few starts. Like he didn't necessarily get unlucky these last two. He kind of deserved
Exactly.
what he got. He lived in the zone a little bit too much and got hit. Uh, but
And good teams to take advantage. Baltimore and Atlanta. I
yeah,
just want to throw
and
that
that's the
in.
thing. It's good teams. The problem is there are a lot of good teams, especially in that division. So, or at least decent
Including his
offenses.
next two.
Oh God.
Philly and the Yankees double dip next week at home.
And it's like I don't know how you don't start him,
I
but
I have to, but oh my god, am I holding my nose? And I love Kutter Crawford,
yeah,
but the Yankees terrify me right
and
now.
that's a 2 start week.
Yeah, that's a
So
Tuesday, Sunday
when I
two start.
when I do my 2 start article on Friday, uh, he'll be in the here we go tier. Like you're probably starting him, but man, I don't feel great about it.
Hold that breath. Now there is a universe where he starts Sunday at the White Sox this week, which would be fine.
Yeah,
And then he'll have the Yankees start next week. But right now, RotoWire has a fill-in penciled in. Right now it's Chase Anderson, and then they moved Cutter to next week. I don't know if the Orioles or the Red Sox are going to do that, but it might make some sense because give him a little breather after these three duds, and then he wouldn't have to pitch Sunday and they get an off day Monday. So just a little extra time in between starts. That might be the best remedy because I don't think Crawford's broken. I just think some great teams are taking advantage of some downside pitching that he's had recently. I think the biggest bummer, Justin, is that he put up a 2.17 ERA in those first 10 starts and only went 2-2. He was definitely part of my whining brigade on the lack of wins because
mm-hmm.
he'd continue to put up these great starts and the bullpen would immediately piss it away and the offense wouldn't do enough to salvage Kutter Crawford. So, yeah, I'm sticking with him, but monitoring him closely. If the two-step is a dud, just neither are good starts. Where are you at then with Kutter Crawford? Do you think you then start to cut, maybe move off of him in shallower leagues?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on who I'm moving off for, but I think I'd
Sure.
probably start to think about it because
Okay.
as things heat up in Fenway, you're not. He's not gonna.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's less about the results and more about what we see with his pitches. Because the thing about Crawford is he's a guy with a completely full arsenal, right? Like he's not a 2 or 3 pitch guy who's just relying on one pitch and kind of has an out pitch or two.
Mm-hmm.
He's got like 4 pitches he can really use, and so while there might be struggles, it's usually a sequencing issue. It's not like,
Yep.
hey, he's lost the feel for this pitch that he really, really needs. Unless there's a tipping issue. But I don't know that there is. I think he'd give up harder contact if there's a tipping issue. So I'm more inclined to kind of hold and at least team stream with a guy like Crawford because I like his arsenal so much.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a hard time moving off personally because he was a guy I really liked. I mean, two bombs next week if it is the Philly New York, I would start team streaming him, but I'm still a good bit away from
Yeah,
cutting personally. And
yeah, I think
frankly,
that's right.
while the time off, the extra like 2 days maybe would do him some good. I wouldn't be super angry if he got the Sunday start at the White Sox. So we'll see how that goes. Right now, it's a bit up in the air according to some of the probables trackers. Let's see what we have because I was looking at
We
RotoWires.
have
We have the
Chase
same
Anderson
thing.
going Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, we have the same thing. So there had to have been something that made Jason and RotoWire put Chase Anderson in there and then move Kutter Crawford to the two-step. And it seems like it's just going to be a couple extra days off for him. So, all right, well, we'll see how those go. Again, some tough decisions here, y'all. I don't envy y'all having to make some cuts here, but some easier ones as well. And hopefully you move off some of these guys that are hurting you. It is that kind of 2 month check-in. We always advocate that people wait, 6 to 8 weeks on some of your top end draftees before you really make moves. It's time to start figuring out some things and really assessing what your team needs here because there is still a ton of time, but you have to start being pointed with what you're addressing. I think you can still pick up best player in most cases, but like if you're way behind, if you're third to last in homers and second overall in steals, well, you need the guys with a little bit more power. You don't want to ignore steals and then fall behind there, but you have to start leaning toward power and things like that. But as per usual, the Thursday episode today on Wednesday, a little bit shorter, but we got to get some things handled. And I got my chat coming up as well. Justin, thanks for working this because you're busy tomorrow. So we were able to adjust to today so we don't have to skip. So I do appreciate you doing that. And we'll be back on Friday talking some two steps.
Take it easy.